I'm Harley, and I'm 33 years old. I'm someone who never really had a dramatic or crazy life. Things were going pretty well for me until this crap, and to think that this all happened in 1 year is wild. So earlier in the year, my mother-in-law, Geraldine, was very excited to host a retirement party for my father-in-law, Robert. Everyone was so excited, and my mother-in-law was being a bit nitpicky about everything, getting on everyone's case and demanding that everyone does everything perfectly. She was a bit of a perfectionist, and everyone would get annoyed with her every now and then. But to be honest, we were just so excited to give Robert the best retirement party he'd ever seen, because he worked so hard and he deserved it. Don't I at least get to know what the theme of the party is? Nope, not one bit. It's a surprise, Dad. I know, but it's killing me. Just give me something, anything. Just know that it's going to be the best party you've ever been to. Don't worry about the rest. Now, my husband Dane and I were involved in the planning too, but honestly, I was just there for the free food and to support my husband. Dane's dad, Robert, was a cool guy, and I didn't mind helping make his retirement party special. But as the planning went on, working with Geraldine got more and more stressful. She was on everyone's case about the decorations, the food, the guest list, you name it. Dane, didn't I tell you to get the terracotta streamers? That's what I did. No, this is orange, not terracotta. You're going to ruin everything. I'm sure it'll be fine. It's going to be pretty dark, so... Did I ask you? Oh, I guess not. Exactly, so shut your trap. Mom, don't be an ass. And don't be an idiot. You're making it really hard to work with you, you know? Well, maybe if you listened to me, I wouldn't have to be like this. Geraldine was getting on everyone's nerves, and some friends and family members dropped out of the event planning just because of how awful she was being. This just made Geraldine hound down on us, me and Dane, even more. Obviously, Dane and I couldn't drop out of organizing the event because, well, we loved Robert and we felt like it was going a bit too far, leaving Geraldine with no one to help her. So we decided to fug it out and deal with her BS. I know that retiring is a big thing, but did it really need a team of 20 people to put everything together? Geraldine was being extra, as always, with her planning, having unnecessary 2-hour meetings for things that could have been sent in an email. I know we all hate when that happens, but Dane and I stuck through it, of course, for the sake of Robert. One day, we were having one of her unnecessary meetings when I got a call from my dad, Maurice. Now, a little background about my dad. He was the kindest, sweetest, most charming person I had ever met, and I loved him with all my heart. He was a single father who decided to stick around for his kid. I know you don't hear that often, but trust me, there are some dads who would do that for their kids. So when my dad called me and said he needed to speak to me about something serious, I was ready to drop everything and leave because he didn't sound too good on the phone. I don't want to alarm you or bother you even. You could never bother me, Dad. What's going on? I need to talk to you. It's quite urgent and I don't know what to do. I'm on my way. I interrupted Geraldine in her meeting to tell her and Dane that I had to go see what my dad needed, and this pissed Geraldine off. She started yelling at me. This is so unprofessional. Why are you always so lazy? Every time I come here, you don't want to work. Don't you want your father-in-law to have the best party ever? Of course I do. But I have a father I have to get to. He needs me too. I'm sick of your excuses, Harley. Tired of her BS, I snapped back. Yeah? Well, I'm sick of you treating this like you're planning the Queen's Jubilee. Excuse me? You always have these unnecessary meetings. We discussed what we needed to discuss 2 hours ago. Yet here you still are, stressing us out because you're a perfectionist. Oh boy, that's when she really let me have it. She was shouting at me, calling me all sorts of names, and out of respect, I did my best to contain myself, while also trying to explain that I was concerned about my dad. Dane was telling his mom to calm down, but she just started yelling at him too, saying some things I never thought a mom would say to their kid, and that's when I said, "Forget this, I'm leaving. Take me out of the group if you want to." I slammed the door behind me and I could still hear Dane and Geraldine arguing when I was getting in my car. I drove as fast as I could, feeling this sinking feeling in my stomach. I didn't know why, but my gut was telling me that I was about to get some horrible, horrible news. When I got to his place, I found him in tears, and this instantly broke my heart. In my 33 years of living, I had never seen that man cry, so I knew that this was something serious. "I'm dying, Harley. They told me that I'm dying." He said that the doctors told him he had lung cancer, and that he had 2 to 3 months left to live, if that. It felt like my whole world was crashing down. How could this even happen? I told him to tell me everything he knew, and he went on to say that one day he wasn't feeling well, but he was putting off going to the hospital until it was getting hard for him to breathe. When he went to the doctor, they told him that they found that he had lung cancer. I didn't even know what to say. My rock was on the verge of dying, and I racked my brain for every possible solution I could think of just to help him in any way I could, because I couldn't imagine a world without him. We both broke down and cried in each other's arms that day. I didn't know how else to feel. I didn't think that anything like this would happen. It turns out my dad had a pretty weak immune system, which is why they didn't give him long to live. I spent the rest of the day just hanging out with him, spending time laughing and crying and reminiscing on the good times. When I got home late in the evening, I was met with Geraldine, who was still very pissed. Apparently she expected me to come back home 4 hours earlier. Whoops. Because I was already feeling sensitive considering the horrible news I got earlier, I just broke down. Dane immediately came up to me and asked me what was wrong, and I told him the news. "What's going on, babe?" "It's about my dad. He's sick." "Oh, Harley, I'm so sorry. What happened?" "Oh, come on, Harley. People get sick all the time. It's not the end of the world." "Geraldine, this is serious. My dad has lung cancer, and the doctors say he doesn't have much time left." "Well, I don't see why we need to make such a big deal out of it. People survive cancer all the time." "Mom! Show some damn compassion. This is Harley's father we're talking about." "That was such a rotten thing to say." "Maybe, but it's true. We have more pressing matters now. Besides, haven't you heard those stories where the doctors say some crap like, 'You have 2 weeks left to live,' but the person survives? All I'm saying is, don't believe everything that you hear." "Mom, this is not the time for your bullcrap. Show some empathy." "I won't be yelled at by my own son." "Well, maybe it's time you left. Harley's going through hell, and we don't need your negativity right now." I should have known a wuss like you would take her side. Whatever. You two are useless anyway. I'm leaving." In the following weeks, Geraldine slipped back into our lives like a shadow, never acknowledging the hurtful words she had said to me during such a vulnerable moment. She went back to her usual meddling and micromanaging as if nothing had happened. Typical Geraldine. Then one day, Dane and I received a call from Dad. His voice trembled as he explained that things were getting worse, urging us to meet him at the hospital. Panic set in, of course, and Dane and I rushed to his side, and when we arrived, the sight of my father, frail and connected to all these thingamybobs and tubes, made me so scared. The doctors were baffled as well, wondering why my dad had declined so quickly, and their uncertainty only made things worse for me and Dane. Dad, weak but still trying to reassure me, struggled to speak. The tears were just streaming down my face uncontrollably. I clung to every moment, fearing it could be our last. The medical staff advised us to not speak to him as much as he needed to rest, so Dane and I stayed by his side, crying in silence. We ignored Geraldine's calls, and even after we told her that we were at the hospital with my father, she continued to call and bother us. Those weeks at the hospital were like a never-ending roller coaster, and every day felt like a mix of emotions. My dad was hanging on to life, and I was caught between the reality of losing him and the stupid stress of the retirement party. It was a juggling act of emotions, one moment crying in the hospital room and the next putting on a fake smile for Geraldine's sake. Obviously, my involvement in the planning was dropping, and Geraldine's anger only grew. She just couldn't comprehend that my world was falling apart. I've honestly never met someone more cruel. I didn't have the energy for her perfectionist whims, and some days I just didn't hide it at all. This wasn't about decorations or party favors. It was about watching my dad slip away. Then finally the day of Robert's retirement party came. Geraldine, being the queen of the event, seemed a bit more composed and relaxed. It was showtime for her stupid, redundant planning, and everyone was feeling the excitement except me. While they were setting up the champagne and some last-minute decorations for Robert, I was thinking about my dad. Of course, Geraldine gave me crap for how I was acting. She expected me to be the life of the party and to match her enthusiasm. If only she knew the struggle of keeping up appearances when your world is falling apart. Dane tried to stand up for me, and bless his heart, but every defense was met with a verbal attack from his mom. It was like a bad dream, caught between the surreal celebration and the painful reality of my dad's deteriorating health. I felt like an actress on a stage playing a role and smiling for the audience while crying behind the scenes. Then this bad dream turned into a full-blown nightmare. The night took a dark turn when the hospital called saying things didn't look good for my dad. They wanted me there to say goodbye, using that machine thingy, the ventilator, to keep him going, because without it, he might have been gone sooner. It hit me like a ton of bricks, and I hurriedly grabbed my stuff to rush to the hospital. But just as I was making a beeline for the door, Geraldine, the party maestro, blocked my way. "Where the hell do you think you're going?" I told her what the nurse had told me, explaining the urgency that every minute counted, but Geraldine, lost in her own world of perfect parties, wasn't having it. Instead, she started yelling, insisting that I stay because the party was more important than my dad dying. At that moment, shock met grief. How could someone be so heartless? How could she care more about her perfect party than my dad literally dying? It was a level of cruelty I just couldn't wrap my head around. How could you say that, Geraldine? What the hell is wrong with you? What the hell is wrong with me? What the hell is wrong with you? I've asked you multiple times to stay here and help me host this party. Well, everything seems to be going well on this side. Why do you need me? Because it's all hands on deck, Harley. I know you wouldn't understand this, but I love my husband enough to throw this party for him. Everything needs to be perfect. I forbid you from seeing him. You forbid me? Yes. I'm not going to let you or your sick dad ruin this for me. I mean, Robert. Don't you dare leave. I don't have time for this crap. I'm leaving whether you like it or not. I stumbled towards the door, Geraldine still yelling behind me, turning our disagreement into a public spectacle. So much for having the perfect retirement party, right? Why would she cause a scene at something she's been working on for months? It just didn't make sense. I was starting to think that this whole thing wasn't even for Robert, but just something that she could show off to her rich and fancy friends. When she was yelling at me, she made it sound like I was the heartless monster. And when I glanced back at Dane and Robert, they looked concerned. They knew about my dad's situation, of course, so I'm sure they didn't mind. In fact, the only person who seemed to mind my absence was Geraldine. Dane tried to join me on the mad dash to the hospital, but his mom, of course, stood in his way, starting an argument with him. Time wasn't on my side, so I couldn't wait for them to sort things out. I needed to get to my dad ASAP. Rushing to the hospital, I found him looking weaker than ever. Every cough seemed to rack his body with pain. He couldn't even speak, and I knelt beside him, tears streaming down my face. It felt like the entire world was collapsing around me. In that heart-wrenching moment, I knew I was losing my dad. In the middle of the chaos, Geraldine's calls kept coming. Annoyed and grieving, I blocked her number. Wanting to spend whatever time I had left with my dad, I poured out my heart, telling him how much I loved him and how I'd missed him. Minutes later, his heart monitor flatlined and he lay completely still. My dad was gone, leaving an emptiness that seemed impossible to fill. I couldn't stop crying. As I grieved, someone touched my shoulder. It was Dane, who had finally made it. He was crying too, and he held me close, whispering apologies for everything. After the nurses solemnly came in to retrieve my father's lifeless body, Dane and I had no choice but to step outside. The sorrow that had gripped me now twisted into a fiery anger. I seethed at the thought that Geraldine's relentless pursuit of her perfect party had robbed me of precious moments with my dying dad. Expressing my frustration to Dane, he admitted he was just as pissed with his mom for her thoughtless actions. As we sat in the hospital, waiting to gather my dad's belongings, a surprise visit unfolded. Both Robert and Geraldine showed up, seemingly to pay their respects. Robert, of course, looked sad, but Geraldine just looked pissed as usual. A bit too little too late, Geraldine. "Harley, why didn't you tell me that this was the situation? I didn't know it was this bad." "Yeah, well, I was kind of pinched for time and I didn't want to ruin your beautiful party." "It was already ruined when you decided to leave." "Geraldine, stop it! You've been so insufferable lately. If I knew that this was happening, I would have cancelled the party altogether." Uh-oh. That didn't sit well with Geraldine. She began complaining about the time it took to sort everything out, and the tension escalated into a full-blown argument. I had always sworn I wouldn't be one of those annoying, dramatic people who fight in public. Yet, here we were, caught up in a scene that felt straight out of a soap opera. I couldn't help but notice the curious glances from onlookers as our family drama unfolded in the hospital corridor. "You think the whole world revolves around you, huh? Morris just died, Mom. What is wrong with you?" Geraldine went off on Dane as usual, throwing names and questioning his worth. Finally, he had enough of her verbal crap. He straight up told her he was done with her and didn't want her in his life anymore. Robert tried to step in, but Dane stood his ground. He made it clear Geraldine wasn't welcome, and it'd be better if she left. She probably thought he would let things slide, and that he was being dramatic, but Dane wasn't having any of it. I was also surprised by how serious he was. He firmly pointed towards the exit, and she stormed out of the hospital. And then the unexpected happened. On her way home, apparently, Geraldine got into a serious car crash. Turns out she was speeding and not paying attention, resulting in a nasty collision with another car. Dane and I only found out later in the night as we had left the hospital and were getting ready to plan my dad's funeral. We had planned to spend the rest of the night just grieving and taking things easy when Robert called us with the news. "You guys need to come to the hospital quickly. I'm on my way right now. The paramedics were saying that she's broken a lot of bones. One of her ribs punctured her lungs, and they're saying it looks like she doesn't have much time. Please, hurry." We cut the call, and we were just trying to wrap our heads around what was happening. This was a lot to take in. I mean, I literally just said goodbye to my dad earlier in the day, and now this? It was all so crazy. I got up, getting ready to do what Robert said, and when I saw that Dane wasn't even getting up, I looked at him, confused. "I'm not going to the hospital, Harl, and you shouldn't either." "What? Didn't you hear your dad? Your mom might not make it." "Doesn't matter to me. She's always treated me like crap. Why should I care if she's dying?" "I know you two have had your issues, and I know today wasn't easy, but Dane..." "I'm being serious, Harley. I don't want to see that woman." It sounds crazy to say, but he was being serious. He didn't care about his mother anymore. He said she was already dead to him, and he meant it. Cold, right? I tried getting him to come with me, but he just wouldn't budge. So I had to leave him at home like he wanted and made my way to the hospital. When I got inside, I dashed straight to the emergency room where Robert and Geraldine were. Geraldine looked like a complete wreck, wrapped up head to toe in bandages, tied up to all these tubes. I'm not going to lie, it was really triggering considering my dad looked a bit like that not too long ago. I felt heavy, and being in that environment was not good for me. What made matters worse is that she wasn't her usual bitter and pissy self. I had never seen her act like this. She was frantic, and she looked like a hurt, lost puppy. Understandable, given the pain she must have been in. But it was just odd to see her mask slip because she clearly wasn't expecting this. When she spotted me, she burst into tears. "Oh, thank God you're here!" Thank God? Yeah, she was really scared. "I don't want to die. Oh God, Robert, please, I'm so sorry for everything. I don't want to die. Please, I promise to do better. I promise I'll be less of a nuisance." "Shh, my love, just rest. It will all be okay." "Oh my God, where's Dane?" The whole situation felt like I was stuck in some family drama I never signed up for, because now I had to be the one to break the news to them that their son was not coming. This revelation hit Geraldine like a ton of bricks, and Robert just looked hurt. "Really? I thought he was parking the car or something." "Nope. I tried to get him to come, but he said he was being serious earlier, when he said that he no longer wanted to be in Geraldine's life." "What? How could he say something like that? Call him!" Robert tried to call Dane, but he kept rejecting the calls. That's when Geraldine realized that she had lost her son, and she didn't have any time left to get him back. There was some awkward silence in the room after that, and I wanted to crawl in a hole and die. I can't believe he doesn't want to come. He's being dramatic, right? How could he not want to see me?" "Well, I mean, you were mean to him." "But that's no excuse. I'm his mother. He's supposed to come to see me." "Well, Geraldine, I hate to say it, what with your condition and all, but you're not a nice person." "Excuse me?" "Holly, this is not the time or the place." By the looks of things, we don't have much time left. So when am I going to get the chance to say this? "Robert, I want her out of here." "Don't worry, I'll leave, but not before saying this. You have made the past couple of months a living hell for me. I've been trying to see my sick and dying father, and you tried to prevent that from happening. I hate to say it, but this just sounds like some good old-fashioned karma." "What the hell are you getting at?" "You tried to keep me from seeing my own dad today. What makes you think you deserve to see your own son before you die?" "What? How dare you? Why, you're crazy if you're thinking I deserve this." "I don't think. I know you deserve this. You're an awful parent, and you don't deserve the love you get from your husband and your son. But now it's too late to love you again. And you did this to yourself." Geraldine was starting to feel like her normal self in that moment, I guess, because she started yelling at me as best she could and telling me to get out. I had no choice but to leave her and Robert behind, going back home to find my husband, who seemed to be more upset at my father's passing than his own mother's condition in hospital. Then, at 3 a.m., the news hit us. Geraldine had passed away from her complications. Robert called me to break the news, knowing that Dane probably wouldn't answer the call. Honestly, the whole situation was pathetic and sad. Do you know how awful you have to be to have your own kid refuse to see you when you're dying? I know she must have felt like absolute crap, and not just from the broken bones, but from knowing that she didn't have her son by her side on her own deathbed.